So the first time I went to Argentina in early 2014, I made a personal observation. And that was that the city of Buenos Aires seemed to have an inordinately high proportion of good-looking men. And when I went back the second time at the end of that year, I went with a friend, and she said to me one day, "Is it my imagination, or is there an awful lot of good-looking men here?" I said, "Yes, I noticed that." And at the same time, I actually had read that this is a generally accepted fact, that the people of Buenos Aires, who are called porteños, both men and women, are good-looking. This is just a generally accepted thing. So I thought, this bears some looking into. So this year, I spent the first 3 months of the year living in Buenos Aires, and I conducted at that time a highly scientific, observation-based research project. In other words, I spent 3 months looking at Argentine men. Hey, it's a hard job, but somebody had to do it. So I looked at men. I saw men, young men, old men, middle-aged men, men from all walks of life. I saw them on the bus. I saw them on the street. I saw them at the soccer game. I saw them everywhere. And there were certain commonalities. Now, the first subject that I saw was on the bus one day. And I saw that he was a young man. He was in his 20s, and he had the most beautiful face that I had ever seen. He looked as though he had stepped straight out of a movie about 16th century Spain. He had those classic aristocratic Spanish features, and I looked at him and I thought, oh, guapo. Guapo is the Spanish word for good looking, and I found myself using it a lot. I would look at these men and I would think, oh, guapo, definitely guapo. But then I thought, now this is research. I have to be serious about this. So I started to be a bit discriminating. And when I found myself saying guapo, I would say, now, Helen, is he really? If you saw this man in Toronto, would you think he was guapo? Or is it just because he's here? And sometimes the answer was, hell, yes. And sometimes it was, well, maybe Argentina has something to do with it. So that was my first kind of insight. Now, I was going to tell you about my extremely handsome tango teacher, Alejandro. But I don't have time for that, so I'm going to tell you instead about Jose. Jose was an elderly gentleman that I met in the park, and he told me he was in his 80s. I met him in the park. He was an entertainer. And he was there with his gaucho boots and his gaucho hat and his poncho and his guitar. And he was entertaining the tourists. And as I looked at him, the first time I saw him in action, I thought, as most of us do, I think, when we see an elderly person, I thought to myself, boy, I bet he was really good looking when he was young. Isn't that the way we think? But the more I watched Jose in action, entertaining and charming these female tourists and kissing them. There's a lot of kissing in Argentina. When you get introduced to somebody at first, you kiss them. They kiss you. You meet people in the street that you've known forever, you kiss them. Some people find this disconcerting. Personally, when you put it together with the fact that they're all so good looking, I quite like the kissing. But I digress. So Jose's in the park, and he's entertaining and charming all these lady tourists. And I looked at him and I thought, no, he's good looking now. Even though he's in his 80s, he's good looking now. And in that moment, I had a flash. Into my head came the opening line from Gone with the Wind, which some of you might know. And that opening line is, Scarlett O'Hara was not beautiful. But men didn't realize that when they were busy being charmed by her, being fascinated by her. And I thought, aha, that goes in the research report. Because this is part of what's happening. The people of Buenos Aires take it for granted that they're good looking. They act as though they're good looking, and they're walking around fascinating themselves and everybody else. And this is a big part of what's creating this impression of good looks. And so after I had been in Buenos Aires for about 6 weeks or so, an interesting thing happened. One day, and it really did happen this suddenly, one day I suddenly began to feel that I was good good looking. Brand new feeling to me, let me tell you. But I thought, wow. And this must be coming from the fact that I was not a tourist in Buenos Aires. And I told everybody I was an honorary porteña. So I think I was taking on some of the attributes of porteños, one of which was good looking. And actually, quite a number of things happened that would support this. But I'll just tell you 3. So I was going away for the weekend, and I had to be downstairs early in the morning to get a taxi to the airport. So I came downstairs, I'm at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing on the sidewalk waiting for a taxi, and a car pulls up across the street from me. It's a narrow street. And I see this car, and he's peeping his horn, and it's a young man, and he's waving like mad out of the window. And I looked at him, and I thought, it looked a bit like my friend Cecilia's car. And I thought, Cecilia must have sent her son, Joaquin, to take me to the airport. So I cross the street. He rolls down the window. It's not Joaquin. It's a total stranger. It's a young couple in their 20s who've obviously been partying all night. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, chica, come with us, party with us. We'll show you a good time." I said, "Hey, chica?" Like, I am years old. It's a long time since I've been invited to a party with 20-year-olds. Anyway, I walked off and I thought, well, that's interesting. It must be because I'm so good looking. So another day, I was in a restaurant. And a restaurant I'd been to many times, and quite a big place, a lot of tables. And this night, it wasn't particularly busy. And I had pretty much had most of my dinner. And I looked up, and there was a man who had just come in and was sitting down at a table over by the window. He was a man maybe close to my own age, good looking, of course. And he sat down, but as he sat down, he and I made eye contact. And he immediately stood up from his seat, came over through all these empty tables and sat down at the table beside me. And he said, "Good evening, Senora. I am Miguel." I said, "Really?" So we chatted, and we had the most delightful, flirtatious chat while I finished my dinner. It was lovely. And I felt good looking. And now I wasn't for this going any further, so I had to make my gracious exit. And as I stood up to leave, Miguel stood up as well. He took my hand, he kissed me, and he said, what a pleasure it had been to meet such a beautiful lady, and how he so much hoped that we would see each other again. Kissed my hand and sent me off floating into the night. And I said, boy, I really like this being good looking. I like it a lot. So there's one more story. This one is the best. So I'm in the bus this day. Now in Buenos Aires, there are high seats and low seats in the bus. And I was on a high seat. It's summertime. I'm wearing summer clothes and a shortish skirt. And there's a man, probably in his 40s, good looking, of course, and he's standing at the door and he's waiting to get off the bus at the next stop. And just, his timing was immaculate, just before the bus pulled up, he comes over to me, he leans down and he says to me, "Senora, allow me to congratulate you on your beautiful legs." Kisses me and steps off the bus. Ladies, has anything like that ever remotely happened to you here in Toronto? No, me neither. If it did, I'd probably call the police. But the thing is, and it was all in Spanish, of course, so I'm listening, I'm thinking, did he really say that? Yeah, that's what he said. And he didn't whisper it, he said it in a normal tone of voice, so everybody heard, but nobody seemed the least bit put out. In fact, there was a woman standing opposite looking at me, and she's smiling and nodding as if to say, well, of course. We're all good looking here. Why don't we just say so? Just acknowledge it. And again, I thought, this is what it is. There's this feeling that everybody assumes they're good looking, they act as though they are, and so it creates this impression across the whole city. Now, you're probably asking yourself, where is this going? Where did she get with this? What did she do with this research? What were the findings? Well, I am about to present to you my scientific findings. This 100% science-based observational research project conducted in the field from January 1 to March 31, 2016, with 98.6% accuracy 19 times out of 20, found the following. The people of Buenos Aires are good-looking because Buenos Aires makes you good-looking. And don't you think that's valuable to the Buenos Aires Tourist Office? I think it's worth a shot. But in closing, I want to give you one piece of supplementary observational research that I found since the 1st of April. And that is, when you leave Buenos Aires, it wears off. It wears off. 3 days back here in Toronto with the snow on the ground and the temperatures below zero, Argentina just disappeared from my face. And I'm left here with a poor old ordinary Toronto version of Helen. And I'm so disappointed. I miss it. I liked being good looking. And so for me, there's only one course of action. I have to get back to Buenos Aires at the soonest possible moment before it's completely too late. And hey, if you want to be good looking, I'll see you down there.